Welcome to the segment of the show we call Hellbent for Horrible Questions, where I invite guests on to talk about their art and answer some horrible, horrible questions. On Saturday, June 29th, the Egyptian Theater in Los Angeles will host Etheria Film Night. Now, Etheria screens the best new science fiction, fantasy, action, thriller, comedy, and horror films, in other words, genre films, directed by women. And leading up to the event, I'll be interviewing some of the filmmakers whose films are up for the audience and jury awards. Today, I'm with writer, director, and visual FX supervisor Ivy Liao about her short film, Cupids Paradise. Ivy, thank you so much for being on Hellbent for Horrible Questions.
Thank you for having me.
Can you give a brief synopsis of Cupid's Paradise? I know sometimes that's hard with a short film, but I'd love to hear from the artist.
Yeah, it's basically set in a dystopian world where everyone is rated based on superficial factors. And this main character, Jen, has 100 dates to find her match before she gets turned into Cupid's slave.
Now, what I liked about the film a lot was that although it starts out, and of course it's a science fiction film, although it starts out as a satire that's kind of bordering on farce, everything is bright colors and rather loud body language. Towards the end, the energy changes to a tenderness and a human connection that's happening. What do you feel was the most important thing that you hope audiences come away with from Cupid's Paradise?
I think the takeaway for the film is I want everyone to kind of focus on human interaction and not really caring too much about first impressions and just what we see in the digital era, such as like photos, Instagram, Facebook. And yeah, I think that's like the theme of the film.
Now, Cupid's Paradise is your third short film, correct? You did Synesthesia and The Chase. I've seen The Chase. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, no.
That was very fun. I like the idea that, to me, that was kind of a horror idea. You have a science fiction one here, very genre motivated, and you had this entity that's kind of following this girl through a house. And do you find yourself drawn to certain types of stories or themes or images that make it into your films?
Yeah, for sure. And I really appreciate you bringing up my past work too. So like in The Chase and in Cupid's Paradise, I think there's this subtlety that's kind of in the background, and it's like the theme of like surveillance. And I'm just really drawn to like worlds where we're being watched, or like there's like some kind of presence that's, watching over our movements and kind of judging us in a way. And I find those stories very intriguing.
Do you find that what are your feelings about the world that we live in with the surveillance that we've got?
I think surveillance is prevalent and also hidden. We never know like when we're being monitored, like when we like roam the internet, when we're out in the streets. And I think with like AI and technology, we're slowly becoming more and more monitored in a way. And like companies are using information that they learn about us to, sell products, or just, like the government is like us. So it's like, yeah, I think we're definitely becoming more surveillanced in a way.
Well, I think it's very interesting because I think in a way it's a very subtle thing, because I believe that by being more open about ourselves and talking more about ourselves in social media, we've allowed the line to move between what is personal and what is common knowledge about us. And so it's almost a subtle thing where we're allowing ourselves to be surveyed. And I felt that was kind of in your movie, Cupid's Paradise, because there's a desire to get a number system, right? There's to not give anything much away. Everything is based on a points system, which is kind of how I see everything at this time in society. So I think that's a really exciting thing, and what you're doing with genre interests me, because talking about what is going on our normal lives is what I think is the lifeblood of any genre work that's out there. So Cupid's Paradise, it's been at a few festivals. It won jury award for best VFX at
It's
Youth
it's the National,
NFFTY
Film Festival for the Talented Youth.
for
Yeah.
the talented youth.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's out of Seattle.
Yes.
And you've also you've gotten a Best Animation Award in San Francisco for the New Concept Film Festival. Now your work's going to be screened at Etheria. As an artist and as a guest, what do you hope to experience when you go to film festivals?
I think the most important experience for me is getting to know people and kind of seeing the other works out there that are in your same genre or just like interests. And I think to me, it's really important to kind of become friends with people with like similar interests, especially in the film industry, where sometimes it's really hard to find like-minded creatives. So I really appreciate Etheria for being so genre specific, and for, giving me the opportunity to kind of connect with other female filmmakers.
So you've had 3 films so far. What do you feel is your voice at this point? Have you found that from what you started with as your first film, by the time that you're doing your third, your interests or what your visual style is has changed?
hmm I do feel like I'm a very like visual effects heavy kind of a director. I do love exploring like things that I can do in post production. And I feel
Mhm.
like with science fiction, it's so heavily integrated in post that sometimes the entire story is recreated in post. Um, so I really think, for me, visual effects is a big part of my storytelling process, and I love directing stories about women and telling like Asian American oriented stories.
So you've worked in science fiction with Cupid. You
Mhm.
dabbled in horror with The Chase. Are you a fan of genre films, or is it more that you're trying them out?
I definitely love genre films, and I think there's something magical about genre that is sometimes absent in like comedy or just like more grounded films. So yeah,
Mhm.
I want to keep directing genre films and exploring science fiction, horror, thriller.
Well, great. Since this is Hellbent for horror, I always like to go towards horror. And
Mhm.
of course, what I love is that the door for horror for me is open very wide. So I always allow people to say, hey, if you don't like horror films, feel free to let us know that. But what was your first kiss with horror? And what I mean by that is it's the movie that made you fall in love with the genre, if you ever did.
Hmm. I feel like it's kind of hard for me to pinpoint an exact film, but growing up, I think, I really enjoyed watching like Scream, Silence of the Lambs, stuff that had to do with like serial killers.
Right.
Yeah, so I think like those classic films really got me into the genre.
Well, you mentioned two that were kind of serial killer heavy.
Mhm.
Do you feel that? I guess this would be my question. When you hear the word horror, what do
Mhm.
you associate with horror? Is it supernatural? Is
Mhm.
it real life? What is it that you think of as a definition?
For me, it's almost like a mix. I think horror can be supernatural, but I also think of like more realistic, like scary situations. Yeah.
Now, we've talked about genre, and I always like to say that people who don't like genre films, they usually have a guilty pleasure that is a genre film. So if you're someone who's immersed in genre, what's the movie that you love that is so not like what you usually watch that you'd consider your guilty pleasure?
Interesting. Hmm. I would say the movie Hereditary.
Ah, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, like I feel like I kind of like avoid movies that have to do with like like dolls or ghosts or just like almost like the supernatural stuff. But yeah, something about Hereditary was just like, wow, like I can watch this multiple times and
Yeah.
still love it. Yeah,
Well, that's awesome. I love that film.
yeah,
So,
I love Hereditary.
well, look at this. You've survived the worst questions that I had. So I want to thank you so much for being on Hellbent for Horrible Questions, Ivy Liao. And tell us where people can see Cupid's Paradise or where they can go to keep up with your work.
So it's not released to the public just yet, but it will be in July around August, and it'll be released via Vimeo, maybe Amazon.
Okay, great. Are there Facebook pages where people can follow what you're up to?
Yeah, I have a Facebook page.
Okay, fantastic. And I want to thank you again for being on and being such a fan. And I want to mention that the Egyptian Theater in Los Angeles is where Etheria Film Night will be playing. That's Saturday, June 29th. There are a lot of great films that are going to be shown. And I want to thank everybody for listening. And until next time, stay hell-bent.